Hi everyone, welcome to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We're here for GoLocal Live. I hope everyone's keeping cool out there. It is a sweltering day here in downtown Providence, but it's nice and cool here in the studio. And I'm your host, Rachel Nunes. Our first guest today is Grant Cohen. He's one of the co-founders of the recently launched app WeKey. Thanks so much for joining us.
Rachel, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. It's great to be here.
So WeKey just launched just a few days ago, so congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And can you just start with an overview of what is the app?
Absolutely. So before we get into the app, I just want to thank the great city of Providence, Rhode Island. As a state, we're obviously very excited to be doing business here as a Providence-based startup. The Mass Challenge Rhode Island program has been wonderful for us, and the Social Enterprise Greenhouse as well has been outstanding. WeKey is a peer-to-peer travel community. We are solely focused on home and apartment exchanging, but for the weekend. And we're launching in New England because of the amazing multi-dimensional travel mecca that New England really is. And you have 6 states, you have access to New York, you have access to Canada to the north. This is a perfect place for us to begin our business. We are a membership by application only, and we verify identities and residences purely to uphold and maintain trust, safety, and of course community.
So let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
Apartment and home exchange. What exactly does that mean?
Sure. So the way our model works is that the guest and the host are the same person. So the person has to be comfortable staying in someone else's place while allowing someone to stay in theirs. And it's a very specific buyer persona, but we feel that because of the popularity of the sharing economy and the growth of weekend travel, that this is the perfect time to be entering this market, and this is the perfect place to be launching.
It's a great time too, especially fall in New England is
beautiful
it's
travel
coming
season.
Up. Yep, we've got leaf peeping coming up. Everyone's favorite
Leaf
activity.
peeping? What is that?
Oh, it's when you come and look at all the fun fall foliage here in Rhode Island and all across New England.
We gotta use that term a little bit. I love it.
So it's of course a great time to be launching your program. So is it always on the same date? Like let's say you and I were both members of WeKey,
sure.
And so let's say this coming weekend for Labor Day,
Yep.
would the exchange just be for us on that day, or can
Sure.
you be a little flexible with the date?
Sure. So the way our application works is you pick a weekend and you pick a location, and you're going to get a portfolio of homes, a portfolio of getaways in your back pocket. And when you swipe right, and that's one of our taglines is swiping right on the weekend, the app functions very similarly to Tinder, although we are not a dating service in any way, shape, or form. But the swiping feature is obviously very popular and prominent today across a wide range of apps, and we're just embedding that into our technology. So you pick a weekend, you pick a location that you want to go, you're going to receive the deck of homes on which you can choose. And from there, you get to pick, swipe right, swipe left. When you swipe onto a specific home that you like, you're going to be able to talk with them, talk with that person. The amazing part about what we're doing is that even if you don't match with the person, you're still going to be able to see who's swiped on you in your WeKey profile. That's kind of the personal profile section of our mobile application. So at any point, you're going to see lots of different opportunities to get away. There's 2 different types of home exchanges that I do want to talk about. The first
Sure.
is a classic simultaneous exchange. That's a one-to-one. So I go to you, you go to me. A perfect example would be I live here in Providence. I want to get out to Portland, Maine. I match with someone in Portland. They match with me. We discuss the parameters of the exchange. I have a beautiful 3-bed, 2-bath. You have a 3-bed, 2-bath as well. Talk about it. Maybe I do a video tour around. From there, we discuss where do I put my key, some of the smaller details associated with the exchanging. But the simultaneous classic exchange happens on the same weekend. It's the exact same date.
Okay.
So that's kind of one way that we can do this. The other example is a non-simultaneous exchange, where I'm away for a weekend because I'm at a hockey game in another state, or at a friend's wedding, something like that. And they come to me, my place is available, and because I'm letting them stay in my place, I now have a pass to stay in their place at a later point.
That's great. And so the big question here is, what makes you guys different? It
Sure.
seems like there's always a different opportunity to
Yeah.
to share things today. And in fact, later in our show, we're going to be talking to a Boston-based startup that shares cars.
Amazing.
And the big thing that comes up with yours is Airbnb, because
Yeah.
we have the, I rent out my house, I rent out my rental property, I rent out a spare bedroom. What makes you guys different from Airbnb?
Sure. So to kind of answer that question, I'd obviously like to talk about, or at least briefly state that Airbnb and other vacation rental platforms have provided an absolutely amazing platform for us to be able to bring this to light today. And obviously very progressive. What they were doing years ago was bold and revolutionary. And we're just trying to be bold and revolutionary in a different way. The current vacation rental platform and home exchange platforms currently center on an annual subscription. And that's where we're competitive. And we are free to start, just so everyone knows we are free. But Airbnb and other vacation rental platforms are pay per night. We are annual subscription pay per year. So the value is pretty significant. We're trying to make vacation free in a lot of ways. So the first night of your first home exchange will more or less pay for the entire service. And every other weekend that you get away is more or less free. So it is unlimited opportunity to get away. It is unlimited adventure. That's one of our key taglines, unlimited adventure. So we are different from Airbnb in a lot of different ways, but we certainly appreciate everything that they've done for the industry.
So as a subscription model, there's no limit to how many times you can exchange or how many guests you can accept. So really, it's on you to use it as much as you'd like. And
that's exactly right. So like I said, unlimited adventure. So as many times as you can find a place to get away to, and as many times that you can find someone who's willing to come stay with you, that's the value of what we're doing. That's the opportunity that we're creating. Weekend travel, and this is an interesting note for all of you, is the fastest growing segment in the travel industry right now. I like to look at the concept of the honeymoon and compare it to what's called the mini-moon. And young people, millennials these days, are not opting to go on a 2 or 3 week honeymoon and allocating all of this time and money for one specific vacation.
mm-hmm.
They want more. They want what's called the mini-moon, or many moons, where they're taking that budget and they're allocating it across the year. They want frequency. They want more vacationing. That's the value that we're providing. We're not saying that going on a trip to another country is not a great thing, or going to California and hopping on a plane is not a great thing, but that's a different type of travel experience. There's so much that can be gained from enjoying your backyard, enjoying places that are within driving distance from your own home. 3 to 5 hours is kind of our target. So because of the growth of kind of weekend travel and the growth of the sharing economy, this is why we feel this, again, is a perfect time to get this started.
And that definitely does remove one of those big barriers of, most people have the weekends off.
Yep.
And if you're just going, say, from here to New Hampshire, it's accessible. But one of the big questions is, well, how am I going to be able to pay for it? Hotels are expensive, rentals are expensive. So you guys are kind of removing that barrier.
That's exactly right. So, when we looked at, why is this relevant now? Why is this important? We obviously do consider a few things. That traveling is expensive. Right? As I mentioned and alluded to earlier, there is so much to be gained from weekend travel. The ability to not take time off away from work, to not have to go to an airport, to experience places in a different way that are in your backyard, that are within driving distance, and then the frequency element, as I discussed. And when we looked at creating this, when we looked at bringing WeKey to life, we looked at trying to answer all of those. And that's really our answer, is how do we try to get away on the weekends more for less?
So talking a little bit about how it works with if you want to join. So you submit your application, and what kind of stuff do you provide when you apply?
Sure. So the application process takes 5 minutes. It's just the same amount of time you'd wait in Starbucks here in Providence, and if you're in New York, you're looking at 2 hours at least. So it's a quick application process. We are the only home exchange and vacation rental platform on the planet to do 4 levels of security. And we do this because we are a community, that it's important that we uphold that. So we do text message verification, social media login, address verification, which is essentially having the individual take a picture of his or her internet bill or utility bill and having that name correspond to the address, and then identity verification, so uploading a picture of your license or passport, preferably a license. I think that's a little more available for people. But it's a pretty quick process. From there, you upload 5 pictures. You're just going to add a couple of details about your home, how many people in your home, are you renting, is it a condo, do you own it, and then you submit. We have a 72-hour waiting period in which we review all applications. We like to do that because we like to balance the supply and the demand of a given market. And then from there, hopefully the individual is accepted and they can immediately start on trying to find that match.
Great. And
yeah.
So how do you, also talking about the levels of security, it's really good to identify people, make sure it is who they're saying they are, because rental scams seem to be a really big thing right now.
Yeah.
People listing people's houses on eBay and other sites, on Craigslist and other sites like that when they're not real or they don't own them or stuff like that. So that's really great. But on the other hand, how do you guys ensure the security of information? Do you have a secure way of storing that information?
We do, yeah. So everything on WeKey is extremely protected. When we developed this app, we obviously took all levels of safety and security, considering that data breaches and privacy are so rampant right now. So that was kind of one of the forefronts of our development, and that's something that we really pushed in our development team. And as we do introduce pricing and a payment model, we will be going with a very preferred vendor that has the same level of security that banks do. So everything on WeKey is very much protected, providing transparency and trust and safety. So that's our goal.
Fantastic. And so where currently, what cities are included? So
we're starting obviously here in Providence,
of course,
the great city of Providence. In Boston, obviously also an amazing city as well. Portland, Maine, which was just named one of the top food cities in the United States. Portsmouth. We do have opportunities up in Montreal, really all throughout New England. I think we obviously have cities in mind that we're going to be starting with, but we're really open on taking applications from anyone, anywhere in this kind of given region. And we have the ability to add cities as we go. So if you're outside of Providence for whatever reason, in Warwick or Cranston or Lincoln, you're more than welcome to apply. If you're outside of Boston and Needham, obviously welcome to apply as well. So it's pretty all-encompassing when it comes to New England.
Great. And so you just launched. What's next? What's the next big hurdle?
So obviously a lot of emotions. We have a really strong team. It's myself and my co-founder Zach Giberson, who also serves as our chief marketing officer and product lead. He's done an amazing job. We have a great team. Lots of Brown interns, a great kind of technical team as well, and a good group of advisors. So I think number one, when you're doing a startup, when you're engaged in this process, you have to find ways to remind yourself of where you started and where you are now. So I think it's certainly amazing kind of where we started, where this idea came from, and kind of where we're at currently. A lot of work obviously needs to be done. We're trying to build this ecosystem. We're trying to get this off the ground in the best, most safe and secure way possible. I think in the months to follow, we're going to be adding quite a few different things, opportunities for food and beverage discounts. So when you go away on a weekend, you're going to have the opportunity to visit one of our partner restaurants or breweries to get 5 or 10% off a flight or pizza, something like that. Going to be introducing a payment platform to kind of make our program a little bit more legitimate, and adding some features there. We would like to add something with insurance, so being able to cover members in a specific way up to a certain dollar amount during the home exchanges. So lots of different things, but just trying to figure out the best way to go to market.
Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I'm sure you could
15
go on
minutes.
for hours about WeKey's launch, but WeKey's now available on the App Store?
Available in the App Store, so we are not on Android. We are not, unfortunately, on the web, so just on the App Store.
Stay tuned. I'm sure it's coming soon. And thanks so much for joining us, Grant Cohen, co-founder of WeKey, changing the game when it comes to weekend rentals.
That's what we're doing. We're having fun. Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for coming in. Yeah. And we'll be right back with our next guest here on GoLocal Live. Hi everyone, welcome back to Go Local Live here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We're here now with Molly Hawes. She's here from Project Let's at Brown University and across the country as well. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Rachel.
So let's start by talking a little bit about what is Project Let's?
So we're a nonprofit organization. We build peer support and advocacy communities for individuals with mental illness or anybody who has struggled with their mental health before.
And so you have a program at Brown University, but it's at universities across the country as well.
Absolutely. So in 2015, we piloted our peer mental health advocate program, through which we train students with mental illness to provide peer support services and advocacy services for other individuals with mental illness. So a student that's struggling with their mental health could request a peer mental health advocate to meet with them on a weekly basis, maybe talk about their anxiety, talk about how to get testing accommodations or seek counseling services on campus. And so that's just one example. We do a wide variety of things and hold educational programs on campus as well. But that was the pilot program at Brown from 2015 to 2017. And then in 2017, with the help of a fellowship through the Swearer Center, the executive director of the nonprofit and I were able to start expanding to schools across the country. So now we're located at schools like University of Texas, Dallas, Columbia University, Michigan State University, Bergen Community College. So we have in total 10 schools.
Great.
And we're launching additional peer mental health advocate programs this fall.
That's fantastic. And so let's talk a little bit about the peer-to-peer counseling. What benefits do those have over, say, traditional counseling?
Absolutely. So I think that it's not an either-or situation. Peer support is definitely a unique type of mental health support. There's really nothing like that Me Too moment between folks who are experiencing the same thing. I think the nature of mental illness is that it can be so incredibly isolating, and many folks feel really alone. So hearing from somebody else who can describe their experiences in a way that might also feel true to your own, that can be really powerful. Additionally, seeking care from a peer, especially for college students who might be wary of the power dynamics involved in therapy, or from seeking services from schools sometimes, it can be more approachable to go to somebody who you know has not only been there before, but is your own age and knows what it's like to be a member of your community living with the same illness.
Definitely, and I'm sure that helps benefit the mentor as well, to help them work through what their past issues and pass along their advice.
Absolutely, it's mutually beneficial. We've seen this in so many different settings where peer support has been implemented, but the power of having a part of your life that is normally shamed or stigmatized becomes something powerful and positive to help somebody else. That can be really fantastic and healing for our advocates as well.
And so we're coming up on back to school time. A lot of schools coming back to school next week. So let's talk a little bit about some of the services that are available to students, not just at Brown University, but at all universities. So when it comes to mental illness, a lot of students feel like it's just something they have to deal with, something they have to overcome. But most universities have an infrastructure built in to help them, but beyond just counseling services.
Definitely. So thank you for bringing that up, because as we are approaching September, with many college students already back on campus, we're really trying to highlight the fact that college students with mental illness can get academic accommodations at their schools. So a lot of folks don't know that mental illness diagnoses like PTSD, major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, those qualify as disabilities under the law, under the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 504 of the Rehab Act. So that means that there are protections for students who have those disabilities, and they can seek services from their disability resource centers or their access offices to either get extended time on tests, excused absences. Fair Housing Act also applies, so if you live on campus, you might be able to get housing accommodations too. if there's something about your illness that makes it hard to live in a communal dorm. So that's something that we're really trying to highlight, and also talk a bit more about what that process looks like, because there is a lot of paperwork involved, and we recommend that people start it as soon as possible in the semester before any crises may arise later on.
Of course, yeah, and a lot of classes will require that you say it within a certain amount of time. You go to the professor and speak up and say, I need X, Y, and Z, not just spring it on them right before a test.
Definitely, and we do also, we're advocating for additional professor training on a variety of campuses, because we think it's important for professors to also know about mental illness, not just the warning signs, but how to accommodate students with that specific disability, and how to have conversations about it with the students that may approach them who don't have accommodations yet, and don't know what resources that they can seek out.
And so what would you say to a student who was maybe considering seeking out counseling? What would you say to them? Maybe someone who isn't crippled by mental illness, maybe someone who's just feeling a little overwhelmed or stressed or needs help working through something. What would you say to help them know that counseling is for everyone, not just for those who seem really sick?
Right. Well, I would definitely say just what you said, that working on your mental health is beneficial for everybody, and everybody has mental health. And also that there are many folks among you that are dealing with mental health diagnoses that you may not know. So the stigmatization of feeling like you might be lumped into that category, it might be stemming from a place of feeling like you've never even met somebody who has that type of diagnosis, but you have. I promise you, 1 in 4 college students has a mental illness. So definitely, I would encourage folks to seek out services and give it a try. Also, maybe try peer support if therapy seems too intimidating at first. But working on your emotions and your mental health is beneficial for everybody.
So for someone, say a student at Brown University wants to get involved with Project Let's, how would they go about that? Maybe they want to find a peer counselor, or they want to become a peer mentor. Mm-hmm. How do they go about that?
So at Brown specifically, they would go to our coordinators on campus, or through our website. And anybody at any additional schools will go to our website, which is let'serasethestigma.com. We're also Project Let's on social media. And they could request to start a chapter there, or request a peer mental health advocate through those channels.
And what kind of events and programs do you generally have during the academic year?
So it's really community-based. We're very person-centered, we're very individualized, and each of our chapters is different in that they are raising issues and educational initiatives that are specific to their students. So our chapter members decide. We have a lot of panel programs where students with mental illness will prepare a presentation and also prepare to share their story with large crowds of their peers, to sort of dispel the myth that, again, students with mental illness don't exist on campus, or that folks are only dealing with anxiety and depression and not illnesses like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. But we also are seeing a lot of programming around issues of sexual assaults in Title IX, issues of suicide, as September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, so that's coming up. And also definitely some of those more highly stigmatized illnesses, really trying to push back against those myths that college students with those illnesses can't succeed.
That's really, really great. And what are some of the events you have coming up at the beginning of the year?
So we are really launching our peer mental health advocate training virtually right now. We're in the middle of training new cohorts of students, including students from Syracuse University, University of Chicago. So really bringing together students from all across the country to talk about how their experiences are different but also similar in many ways, especially with the systemic barriers that they might encounter on their own campuses. So we'll be launching more of those virtual trainings in the coming months, and we'll also plan on having some community-based events for Suicide Prevention Awareness Week to be announced.
Great. Well, definitely keep an eye on their social media and their website for upcoming events. Molly Hawes, thanks so much for joining us from Project Let's, helping shed some light on some of the things that are available for college students, and just to know that there is someone there for you.
Thank you, Rachel.
And we'll be right back with our next guest here on GoLocal Live. Hi everyone, welcome back to GoLocal Live here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We're here now with Andrew Mock. He's the CMO of Turo, a car sharing app. Earlier in the show we had a house swapping, and now we're talking about car sharing. So can you welcome Andrew, and can you tell us a little bit about the service?
Yeah, happy to, and thanks so much for having me on the show. So Turo is the world's first and the world's largest peer-to-peer car sharing platform. A lot of folks like to call us the Airbnb for cars. And basically the way it works is if you're a car owner and you have a car that's just sitting around idle costing you money, you can share it on Turo and earn extra cash to offset your car payments, your insurance costs, and all of the other very high expenses associated with car ownership. And if you're a traveler who is looking to book a car for your trip, you get access to great cars at great prices. We're on average about 35% more affordable than the traditional car rental alternatives.
And so where did this come from? How did you guys, when did you launch, and how did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, so the company was actually founded back in Boston in 2009, and as legend has it, as our company founder tells it, it was a dark and stormy night in Boston, and Shelby Clark, who is the name of our founder, was riding his bike, trudging through the snow to the nearest car rental location, and he kind of looked around at the street, and he was like, these cars are all just parked here, and they're packed tightly behind one another. Why can't I just borrow one of these? And so that's how the concept was born. And the mission for the company is to put the world's 1 billion cars to better use. It's actually remarkable if I share some of the numbers with you. In the United States alone, there are 270 million registered passenger vehicles, but there are only 210 million licensed drivers. So there's more cars out there than there are drivers. And the average car is just sitting idle there 23 hours out of 24 hours of the day. So it's a massive waste of valuable resources. And so by sharing it, just a few days a month on Turo, you can get better utilization out of it, and you can just totally change the economics of car ownership. So that was really the genesis of the concept of Turo.
So if I wanted to register my car with the app, how does it work? Can I limit when people come to use it, or how long? Do you get to set the limits yourself as the car owner?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can control however long you want it to be rented for. You can set the availability. And so some people will share it, only on the weekends when they're not using their car. On the weekdays, some people will share it every day of the month because it's just an extra car that's sitting there. Maybe it belonged to your child, and your child now went off to college, and so your car is available all the time. So it's really completely up to you. And you can set your own prices, and you can even customize the length of the bookings that you'll accept. So you can say, okay, well, the minimum that I'll accept is 3 days, or you could say the maximum I'll accept is 3 days. So you have all of the bells and whistles and all of the customizations that you would want to toggle with directly in the app or on our website.
And so as a car owner, I'm sure most people agree with this sentiment that, I love my car, I take good care of it, I don't want a bunch of people coming and trashing my car. How do you guys assure that your users treat the cars well, and what do you do if something does happen?
Yeah, totally. And it's, sometimes I pinch myself because when I joined the company back in 2012, everybody thought it was crazy, right? Like, who would share their car with a stranger? They're just imagining all the bad things that would happen to their car. And if you look at where we are today in 2018, we're at over 280,000 listed cars. So it's pretty remarkable. It's something that a lot of folks are doing. But to answer your question about kind of the trust and safety and the insurance, what we really pride ourselves on is working with top-tier insurance providers. So in the US, we work with Liberty Mutual, which I'm sure most of your viewers are familiar with, the top-tier insurance provider. And we provide $1 million in liability coverage to all of our hosts. And so our insurance, we're really, really happy about the product that we came up with Liberty Mutual to protect our car owners on the platform.
And so as a car owner, my car insurance doesn't have to cover it then?
Yeah, so that's the idea. Is that the company, kind of the insurance that we offer through Liberty Mutual, the 1 million covers you during your Turo booking. And the other thing we do is, throughout the product, similar to other online marketplaces like Airbnb and Uber and Lyft, we have a two-way reputation system. So you rate the host if you're a guest, and the host rates the guest as well. And anytime somebody gets a bad review or there's an issue, we'll flag it. So we try to make sure that everybody in the community is a good citizen, and will treat their car, treat the car of the host like they'll treat their own car.
And so as a rider, how do I go about finding a car to rent?
Yeah, so it's very, very simple. You can download the Turo app on the Apple Store or on the Google Play Store, or you can go to Turo.com, Turo.com, and then you immediately have access to browse the 280,000 cars on the platform. And it's actually pretty fun if you're into cars or you want to dream about the type of car you can drive. You can find everything from a classic Cadillac Eldorado to a vintage Corvette to even the latest and greatest Tesla Model 3. So it's really fun just to browse the cars and envision yourself in that car, and you can book the car right there on the app or the website. And then once you've booked the car, you go to either pick up the car at the location, or many of our hosts offer delivery. So you can have a Tesla Model 3 delivered to your doorstep. So it really is a seamless, very, very convenient customer experience.
Great. And so where currently is Turo available? Of course, it's available in Boston. It's home city, but where else have you expanded to?
So Turo has grown quite a bit since we launched in 2010. We're in 5,500 cities across the United States. We're in every state except the state of New York. So we're pretty much everywhere that you would travel to. We also have a presence in Canada. We have our peer-to-peer product there. And this year we launched in Germany as well. So Canada, Germany, and US are where we have our peer-to-peer marketplace. In addition to that, we have some commercial hosts that we work with, which you can kind of think about as independent mom and pop car rental agencies. And those folks are located all around the world. So if you are looking to book from one of our commercial hosts, we actually have a presence in over 56 countries. So really a pretty vast geographic coverage at this point. And if you're looking to book a car for your next trip, we probably have an option there for you.
And is the service available here in Providence as well?
Yes, it's in Providence as well. I'd be curious to take a look and see what types of fun cars we have over there. I'm sure the folks there have some pretty interesting cars that they share.
Oh, I'm sure you always see some interesting old cars and fancy cars all over the place. So it's a great opportunity to try it out. Maybe get to drive something you wouldn't have the opportunity to otherwise.
Yeah, totally. And we have some really fun stuff. So I'm actually here in Los Angeles, and so we have a lot of folks who obviously are very inspired by the entertainment industry. And so, for example, we've got the David Hasselhoff car, the Kit car, the Knight Rider. We've got the Back to the Future DeLorean. We've actually got a few of them here. Actually, one of my favorite ones here wasn't based on a movie. It's a truck that runs on veggie oil.
Oh, wow.
The host modified it to run on veggie oil. Yeah, so you've got everything under the sun, and that's the beauty of the marketplace. Is people love cars, and they've got amazing stuff to share.
And so how far in advance can you book it? Let's say I have a trip coming up in a month. I want to get it all figured out. Can you book out in advance, or is it more of an immediate service?
Everything. So we have some folks who are the planners, and they'll book many months in advance, and that works out great for them. Sometimes they might get better deals. But we also have the last minute folks who can take advantage of one of our features, which is to book instantly. Where you don't have to wait for a response from the host. The host has already committed to making the car available, so you just click the book instantly button, and you can book it in as short of a lead time as even an hour.
And so, especially when it comes to rides, today it seems like there's so many different options. For a while, they're off the streets now. We had Bird scooters here in downtown Providence. There's Uber, there's Lyft, there's seemingly hundreds of different ways to get from point A to point B. What makes Turo different?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way I would think about the electric scooter companies and Uber and Lyft and the other rideshare providers is that they're great from getting from point A to point B. You don't really care about the car. All the scooters are kind of pretty similar. It's just kind of a commodity. You want to get from point A to point B, and you need to go run an errand. Turo is really more about travel. So if you're taking a weekend trip, you're not going to take Ubers to go 50 miles or 100 miles away. If you're taking a vacation, let's say to Hawaii or some other city, and you're planning to drive around quite a bit, it's just not affordable to take Ubers or even practical to take scooters everywhere. And so that's where you would use Turo. It's really for kind of those longer duration trips where you need a car for a further distance or for an extended period of time. And I would say the other thing I would mention is, most of the time when you're sitting in a rideshare car, it doesn't really matter to you what type of car you're in. You want it to be safe, obviously, but you're only going to be sitting in there for a few minutes. With Turo, a lot of times when you travel somewhere, you're spending as many waking hours in your car than you are in your hotel room. So you want something fun, right? You want something that can really add to your travel experience. And that's where Turo is really different than all of the options out there, because you can get these really great cars at great prices.
Fantastic. And so what's next for Turo? What are the big plans, say, 5 years from now? Where does Turo hope to be?
So I think we want to continue to make the customer experience even better, make ourselves even more affordable for folks, add even greater selection of cars, add more locations, make the app and the website more frictionless. But I think the next big step for us to realize our mission, which, as I said, is to put the world's 1 billion cars to better use, is to continue to expand into more countries. I think it's clear that the concept of Turo is really adding a lot of value to the world, as can be seen by car owners who are sharing their car in the States and in Canada and Germany, and travelers from around the world who are booking their cars. So we get, emails and contacts from folks all around the world saying, hey, when's Turo coming to my country next? And that's really what we're focused on, is trying to bring it to as many people as we possibly can.
And so if you wanted to set up, say, a recurring rental, let's say I generally work here in downtown Providence and I can walk to work or I can take the bus to work, but once a month, once a week, I have to go to a satellite office somewhere else in the state. Could I set up let's say, a recurring rental with the same owner every few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, you could go in the app and basically just book, because you can book as far out as you want. You can just go in there and just kind of make the booking for the exact dates that you're looking for. So yeah, that would certainly be possible.
Great. And so last thing, what would you say to someone who is maybe on the fence about renting their car? What would you say to them to convince them that it's really a great thing as a car owner?
Yeah, so I think the core of it is your car can pay for itself. It's really as simple as that. For most folks, the car is the number one or number two most expensive asset that they own. And unlike real estate, unlike a home, it doesn't appreciate in value. It actually depreciates every single minute, every single second that you own it. And so with Turo, you can essentially turn those economics on their head. And instead of your car becoming a cost center, it can become an income generator. It can deliver extra cash for you. And just to lay it out more clearly in terms of some of the numbers, the average host on Turo earns about $625 a month.
Which more than covers the average car payment.
Exactly, and the average monthly loan payment for a 2017 model car is $504. And by the way, that $625 that the average Turo host earns is actually just from 9 days of sharing. So you still have the car to yourself for the majority of the month. And so just with a little bit of effort, just with a little bit of sharing and planning, you can offset your loan payment plus have a little bit of extra cash, which is really compelling. Nobody has thought about cars in this way, and so we're glad to be pioneering this new way of thinking about car ownership.
Fantastic. Well, Andrew Mock, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. If you're looking for a new way to get around, maybe you going away for a weekend using WeKey, you need somewhere to get around, now you can with Turo. So thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back here on GoLocal Live.
Awesome. That was fun. Appreciate you having me. Okay. Thank you so much. You too. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Go Local Live here in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. Our last guest of the hour, Sam Bell, he's here. He's running for Senate District 5. And we had one of his opponents in just last week. Welcome, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So, primary election coming up, just a few days away now.
Yes, yes.
And so where's the campaign at now? How's it going?
It's been really fun. The best part of the campaign for me has been talking to so many of my constituents, going around, walking through the district, hearing their stories. And people are really struggling here in Providence. You know, I've heard some truly devastating stories. A lot of folks upset about a lot of the basic breakdown of city services. You know, since the tax cuts for the rich, and Rhode Island slashed taxes for the rich by more than any state in all of American history except for North Dakota, our roads have gotten into truly terrible condition. And honestly, our schools are in even worse condition. Property taxes have gone through the roof, houses, apartments, businesses, especially on cars. But where they cut the deepest, of course, healthcare. Talked to a woman kicked off her Medicaid, middle of her cancer treatment. Has to pay $30,000 for the chemotherapy she just needed to stay alive. Talked to another woman, didn't know she was kicked off. Concussion, head scan, $15,000 bill. No way to pay it. I don't think it's right. So I'm running in the primary against the incumbent, Jabor, because I really don't agree with his positions on the issues, from his votes to cut Medicaid to his bills to cut taxes for the rich, even more.
And so if you are elected, what concrete steps do you plan on taking to help right some of these wrongs you see in Providence?
Well, as I tell a lot of people, I'm not going to lie. What I want to do is to take on the systemic problems that have been truly devastating our city. That means pushing back against the agenda that has dominated our legislature for years. I want to repeal the tax cuts for the rich, but guarantee you, the state Senate does not. I want to get rid of that law that my opponent co-sponsored that forces Providence to subsidize all that luxury housing on the I-195 land by letting the agency that did the 38 studios deal through their subcommission, the I-195 Commission, spend our Providence taxpayer money on 15 and 20-year tax breaks that have mostly gone to luxury housing. It's bankrupting the city, and it's wrong when we spend less than a tenth per capita Massachusetts does on affordable housing, but you better believe that those developers who get all those special tax breaks are one of the most powerful special interests in the General Assembly. And that's not going to be an easy fight. As I tell all my constituents, I'm not going to promise you that in the first 2 years, I'm going to be able to turn around what our legislature has done to our state. I can only promise you what I'm going to fight for, but you lose every fight that you don't take on.
That's a really great approach to it. I know a lot of people worry about the whole campaign promises of, oh, on my first day in office, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be fixed, and everything's going to be great within a week. But sometimes it is better to take that longer view and say, oh, these are big issues that we really need to tackle over the long term.
I think as a legislator, it's really hard to say, I'm going to control everything the legislature is going to do. If you're running for an executive position, you need to take responsibility. And far too few of our executives here in Rhode Island do. And you should be held accountable for your lack of concrete results. But in a legislative position, you should be held accountable for what you accomplish. But I do not believe that it's right to go around and overpromise and say you're going to fix everything when there's no way you can, when the legislature goes so hard against the ideals that most Rhode Islanders, especially most Rhode Island Democrats, hold true.
And so you mentioned Rhode Island schools have been
Yes.
suffering, and that has been a big theme in Rhode Island. In past months, Governor Raimondo has been pushing for her big, she's calling it a once-in-a-lifetime investment into schools to really help build them back up. What do you think really needs to be done to help improve our schools?
I mean, let's start with the basics. The fundamental problem with the schools has been the destruction of the city budgets by the General Assembly. It started with devastating the city budget to pay for the tax cuts for the rich. We have to repeal the tax cuts for the rich so we can finally talk about where to invest instead of always talking about where to cut. Then we also do have to talk about all those special tax breaks that have been forced on cities, especially Providence, that are also bankrupting the city, forced by the state. including, yes, the mall deal, which is about $20 million a year. It's bankrupting the city, and you cannot have a city with a broken budget that has solvent schools, that have real investments in the schools. Secondly, we do need to change how we govern the schools from the state level. And yes, there are management problems with the schools at the city level. It's very difficult to do anything about it in the state senate. What we can do something about is the way RIDE governs the schools, Rhode Island Department of Education. One of the things I really disagree with is the new initiatives that they've been trying to push to roll back human teachers and move towards computerized education. I don't believe it works, and the data are very clear. You know, I learned how to, the big push here, of course, is with computer science. That's been the big testing ground. The idea is instead of hiring new computer science teachers, we go out and we create these modules that we buy from private companies where the kids get to play logic games, but they never actually write any lines of code. I learned how to program. It's a skill I use every day in my work as a geologist on the Brown data science group. And I would have never learned how to program if I hadn't been taught by a human teacher. And so I really believe that human touch is necessary. The big push away from human teaching, I think, is fundamentally misguided. And we need to really take a hard look at the policies that are pushed down from the Department of Education at the statewide level.
And so another big thing that's been very talked about this primary season has been debates and the lack thereof. Do you think, especially in the primaries, which in Rhode Island a lot of times are more hotly contested than the general, do you think they're really important to the race?
Of course debates are really important. You know, I had a conversation with my opponent about, I told him I wanted to have a debate on the issues. He told me I want to have a debate instead on residency. But he did ultimately agree to have one debate on the issues at the WBNA. It's going to be right before the election, the night before the primary. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really important clarifying moment in this election.
Do you think that gives voters enough time so close to the election to really make the best decision?
No, but I'm happy that we got at least one debate. So look, there are plenty of elections in which you don't get any at all. I'm happy that Jabor agreed to at least one.
And speaking about the gubernatorial debates as well, what are your thoughts on the silence that's been coming from both sides? We haven't had any confirmed debates ahead of the primary. It doesn't look like that's going to end up happening before the 12th. What are your thoughts on that?
I think no matter where you stand in the gubernatorial primary, I think everyone agrees that the gubernatorial candidates should debate. And I think that that's just a fundamental and basic thing. And even people from the Raimondo campaign and the Fung campaign have privately told me they agree that there should be a debate, and plenty of supporters of both those candidates both agree that there should be a debate. And I think that that's pretty widely agreed on. I really think it's important that we have that debate because it's really important, not just for helping decide the election, but it's a really important clarifying moment to help us have a real conversation about public policy in Rhode Island. And debates are an incredibly important part of the political process. We really should have them.
And so as we get towards the primary, what would you say to your voters? What's the most important thing for them to know about you? What would you like to say directly to them?
Look, for me, this election has been about one thing, and it has been about the issues. And it's been about the basics. We're not talking about anything crazy here. We're talking about the fundamental, really the democratic agenda, really the core, real democratic values that we, as Democrats in Rhode Island, should hold true to. That does mean repealing the tax cuts for the rich. Everyone always talks about how we're going to find money and how we're going to invest in programs. There is a very simple solution. Repeal the tax cuts for the rich. Yes, it does mean getting rid of the Medicaid cuts, which have been brutal, which have been so cruel, have hurt people so much. And yes, it does mean saving a woman's right to choose here in Rhode Island. You know, I'm very proud to have been endorsed by Planned Parenthood. My opponent was endorsed by Right to Life, as he has been for years. I've also been endorsed by the National Organization for Women. It's one of the biggest differences in this race. Rhode Island has an abortion ban on the books, and we lose Roe v. Wade at the national level. It'll snap back into place, probably. I believe we cannot allow that to happen. But honestly, right now, the top leadership of the state Senate is all endorsed by Right to Life. The only way we get this done is if we win primaries like this one, so that we can actually have a pro-choice Senate. So that's one of the biggest, highest stakes issues in this election, but it is also about the rest of that fundamental Democratic agenda, repealing the tax cuts for the rich and getting rid of the Medicaid cuts.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sam. We really do appreciate it. And of course, the primary's coming up soon, and good luck in your debate. And they're moving along quickly
Thank
here
you so
in Rhode
much for
Island.
having me.
And so that does it for this hour here in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. But stay tuned. Kate's up at 4. You don't want to miss it. She's got more great guests ahead on Go Local Live. For now, I'm your host, Rachel Nunes.